while overall cancer death rates have been on the decline in recent decades, the prognoses for individual cancer types can look completely different from one another, as we heard earlier. Breast cancer, the most common cancer in women, now has some of the highest survival rates of all cancers, improving by about 40% in recent decades. Pancreatic cancer is the third most common cause of cancer deaths in the United States, despite making up only 2% of yearly diagnoses. Why have some cancers seen remarkable improvements while others remain so challenging to treat? Here to explore the progress in patient outcomes and the work being done to make all cancer types survivable and reaching a much wider swath of people, I'm joined by Dr. Ronda Henry-Tillman, Division Chief of Breast Surgical Oncology and Director of Health Initiatives and Disparities Research at the University of Arkansas for Medical Science. That's a mouthful. And Dr. Anirban Maitra, co-lead of the Pancreatic Cancer Moonshot and Scientific Director of the Pancreatic Cancer Research Center at the MD Anderson Cancer Center. Look, I mean, I've been having fascinating conversations. These are deep dives. But I've got to ask Dr. Henry-Tillman, first of all, you are considered and you've been called one of the best doctors in America. I'm going to mention a friend of ours, Byron Carlock, who was just telling me about your time together in school as a young person, waiting, to be picked up, your family, your brothers and sisters to go pick cotton or not. And, I mean, Byron just said, I just want to say that this guy, she's the smartest African-American woman in a sharecrop heritage town. And I wanted to put that out raw to people because you have overcome obstacle after obstacle, become one of the highest ranked and most noted doctors. What do we do to get lots more of you? What do we do to get lots more people in the bubble of care? I know you work with rural communities, but I'd just be interested in your secret sauce.
We're all taught to work hard and strive for everything we can and taking a chance. Many people took chances on me. And so those who take chances and look beyond what they see and look who you truly are. We are all intelligent. We all have focus, and give those a chance. Open up the doors and provide access. So many times, people don't even think about you to give you that opportunity. That's where all the initiatives are going on regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we aren't getting that opportunity. Think about the politics that we see when it comes to African American, Hispanics. They don't even want people to come across the border or in the United States. If you look at the race and how that's impacted, give us a chance, go after young kids early and let them know that they can do this.
Now, I understand you go back each year, maybe I have this wrong, and you arrange for free screenings in Blytheville, Arkansas. The question I have are members of the Black community there, do they show up for you and not show up for others? We lost your sound there. Go ahead. Say it again.
They show up because of access. And one of the things I was always told that African Americans don't come to the doctor. And I said, that is not true. The resources available to African Americans are far often not there. And so one of the things I did very young in my career is that I developed a program that allowed me to get support. I received support from the National Cancer Institute Center to Reduce Cancer Health Disparities, where I was able to work with the communities where we provided support. We have a mobile unit at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences where we take screening. We found out that 26 counties in our rural state didn't even have facilities. And looking at the data, we knew women couldn't drive over 50 miles to get a screening test. And that's just not for breast cancer, but it's also for colon cancer, to get a colonoscopy. We also have a screening program in colonoscopy that reach all counties in the state of Arkansas. Lung cancer screening, high-risk men who still need prostate cancer screening. So it's important that we look at the big picture. And other speakers have talked about providing that access. Look at where we're putting our forces are if we want change.
Dr. Maitra, you're another hero. I've not met you, but when I read about the work you're doing, I want to remind our audience that you co-lead the Pancreatic Cancer Moonshot. You're on a different side of the spectrum than to some degree on the achievements of what has been achieved in breast cancer. I'd just like to know, what you think can take, I think, a fairly dismal situation in the pancreatic cancer story and turn it into a better story. What do you see happening? What do you need? What's not happening?
That's a great question. And again, thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about pancreatic cancer, which is what I've been studying for over 2 decades now. And I was just telling Dr. Henry-Tillman before we came on that I see the survival rates for breast cancer and now melanoma, thanks to some of the new therapies. And I look at it with deep envy because that's really where we want to go. But melanoma, breast cancer, those are our North Stars. That's where we want to go with pancreas cancer. The problem with pancreas cancer, unfortunately, and there are many, is first of all, almost 80% of our patients present with disease that has already spread beyond the pancreas. And so you can't do surgery on these patients. And so the only sort of treatment opportunities available are chemotherapies. So the 20% or so patients that undergo surgery, those are the patients where we have the greatest shot at having true long-term survival or cure.
Right.
And again, it's not that the numbers haven't changed. They just haven't changed enough and fast enough for us to be really satisfied with where we are. So the 5-year survival rate for pancreas cancer is about 10% right now. It was single digits till not that long ago, but obviously 10% is not a number that any of us in the field are satisfied with.
Dr. Maitra,
so
let me...
in terms of, go ahead.
I'll just ask you another question, just, again, going back to the cancer moonshot. And, one of the underlying ideas is get people from different arenas, get the clash of ideas. I was talking to Dr. Agus the other day, who's got this new Ellison Center at USC, and he's got artists there. I don't know what is efficacious in achieving what you know, but I find it appealing that there is this question that if there is greater synergy and work across fields and sciences, it may be there. You're at one of the greatest cancer centers in the country. What is missing in the story? Is data sharing where it should be? Are the partnerships with government? Are we funding enough research? When I think about NIH or the National Science Foundation, which is non-health, but non-health advances in mathematics. I'm just interested in, if we were to say, hey, I got $100 that really is $100 billion to put on the table, where should it go?
Yeah, so I think, to me, as somebody who's in the trenches, one of the biggest barriers has been the whole thing about sharing data, and I think Dr. Wingfield talked about interoperability. This is a major problem. I mean, we have a lot of data that has been accumulated that is sitting in silos in institutions that is not getting out there in a way where we can mine it and really use it for larger benefit. The other thing is not just the amount of data, but how to leverage that data in a way where it makes sense. Just to give you an example, we have now sequenced, 10 years ago, we barely knew about the DNA of pancreas cancer, just a little bit. And then, we were able to use the advances from the Human Genome Project and apply it to pancreas cancer, get to know a lot more. So there is enormous amounts of sequencing information that's out there. And some of it has, in fact, been collected and put into repositories, but there's a lot of stuff that's sitting in institutions around the country, outstanding centers of excellence, which is linked to clinical outcomes. What treatments work with a particular compendium of DNA abnormalities? What is the patient's makeup? Just coming back to the whole issue of equity, what works in particular ethnicities? What is the makeup of the tumor? That information is sitting, but it's sitting in pockets. If we can bring it all together in a seamless way, and that, in fact, is one of the goals why then Vice President Biden started the Cancer Moonshot, was to break down these barriers, I think we'll be much, much further along. The other thing that I think you asked Dr. Sharpless was to bring people who are not in the cancer research field per se into the field. And that includes computational scientists, physicists. A very good example of this, and I was just telling Dr. Henry-Tillman this before we came on, which is we are the nation that has satellites that can look from space and find a single person walking inside a compound, right? We should be able to pick up microscopic, small, tiny tumors in the pancreas with this imaging technology. But that's built by who? It's built by the folks who are, making these satellites. Let's get them into cancer research. Let's make those partnerships between MD Anderson, between University of Arkansas. Let's get them together with all the companies that make these satellites and pick up those tiny tumors in the pancreas or lung or wherever.
I thought I was going to be depressed today, but I'm getting to the point where I'm a little hopeful. Dr. Henry-Tillman, let me throw a curveball at you for a moment. I just was on a phone, I don't know if he's listening right now, and I hope it's okay that I mention him, but Vivek Wadhwa, he happened to lose his wife to cancer, but he has launched this idea to create a global cancer moonshot. And it occurs to me that global, I mean, he's been focused a little bit on the peculiar opportunities in India, but you've worked in Africa. I want to tell our audience you've worked a lot with Africa in also teaching and sharing knowledge there. And I'd just be interested, you know, I love people with global perspective who have global connectivity in these questions, because sometimes you learn stuff, but it's not just us preaching to them, it's what we can learn from them to bring back. I'd love your insights on your Africa encounters and experience of what you've been trying to build there and how it's relevant to your patients here in America.
Thank you for that question. You know, global treatment is so uniquely different. And if you think about access and disparities, go globally. And when I first went over to Africa, you know, I knew it would be different. And I had to think outside of the box because I knew there wasn't going to be the ability to screen. And I had to think about how am I going to go in and care for patients with cancer. And so these patients were coming in with advanced stage cancer in hopes of some way to treat them. And the only thing we could offer was local control. And I'm talking about a perspective from breast cancer. And I started thinking about the issue, and as technology has changed, we were able to take in like our iPhones and our Android phones and take a transducer, and having the ability to look and talk to women about if you feel something, you can come in. We can take this ultrasound and find a tumor that's less than a centimeter or 2 centimeters before it is more advanced. And so thinking differently on how to address early detection in a country or in a global situation where they're not with the access that we have.
Wow. I want to sneak in very quickly a question from Daoud Mirzaman, who is the NCI NIH branch chief. And he says, with the unprecedented advances in the field of genomic medicine, most physicians have limited knowledge of genomics medicine and its applications in cancer diagnoses and treatment. How do we train and prepare our current and future physicians to deal with this challenge? This gets back to that evenness of care with so much advances going on at a time when I think if Galileo were alive, he'd still be in trouble. But, you know, how do you get you know, when you're in Blytheville, Arkansas, you're in rural communities with well-meaning, wonderful, trusted doctors. How do we bridge them with the new technologies that are coming out in blood testing, sampling, et cetera? So I'd love to just get quick answers from you, Dr. Maitra, and then our friend Karen.
So I think we need to change the curriculum in our medical schools a little bit, make it a little bit more prevention oriented. I think it's wonderful that we're teaching a lot of the state-of-the-art science. I understand that, and that's important. But I do think that most physicians still will encounter patients in the prevention setting and understanding how to have an impact. Remember what Ben Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And I think it was Dr. Wingfield who said that health is, or it is not just being sick, right? There's a lot that happens before you get sick. Right. How do we teach our medical students to capture that window of opportunity and intercept before someone, for example, presents with metastatic cancer that's not curable anymore? That's that window that we need to teach them to leverage.
Fantastic. Dr. Henry-Tillman?
Sharing resources, having access. You know, I'm often called on by many physicians to talk about cancer and what they should do. Genomics is so important in understanding the biology of the tumor and how that tumor is going to behave. In today's treatment of cancer, if you don't understand the genomics, you have little chance of providing that change in outcomes. So we're often called on to talk with physicians about cancer and how to manage that. You know, we're an open cancer center here at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, Winthrop P. Rockefeller Cancer Institute, and we train and teach all over the U.S. and globally because we know it's important because not everyone's going to come here. If you look at the market share, not everyone makes it to the big cancer institutes like the Winthrop P. Rockefeller Cancer Institute and MD Anderson. So we have to have that access and direct access to us as providers to share this information as a specialist.
Well, listen, wonderful conversation, so meaningful. Thank you. Well, Dr. Ronda Henry-Tillman, whom I hear is a superhero in Blytheville, Arkansas, and I'm going to have to get down there and check that out. Division Chief, Breast Surgical Oncology, and Director of Health Initiatives and Disparities Research at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences. And Dr. Anirban Maitra, who's the co-lead of the Pancreatic Cancer Moonshot and Scientific Director of the Pancreatic Cancer Center at the MD Anderson Cancer Center, one of the great cancer centers in the United States. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.